Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Wargiven Racing podcast. This episode will be covering the NASCAR action at Circuit of the Americas this past weekend, and let's hop right into it. So, just looking at the track information again, this road course opened in 2012 with its first NASCAR weekend being last year. The track has 20 turns with two very long straights, and then technical sections such as the S's and then the complex immediately after the backstretch hairpin. This track also currently hosts the U.S. Grand Prix for F1 and then has had IndyCar and IMSA in the past. And then defending race winners are Chase Elliott in Cup, Kyle Busch in Xfinity, and Todd Gilliland in Trucks. So moving on to the XPEL 225 for the Truck Series, Zane Smith wins his second race of the year in his front row Motorsports Ford. Notable top 10s is Kyle Busch in his second truck start of the season, finishing third. Tyler Ankrum getting seventh for Hattori Racing Enterprises. Carson Hocevar getting another top 10 for Nice. And then Grant Enfinger for GMS getting his first top 10 of the season. The notable moments of the truck race, in the first stage, there wasn't really much. An occasional spin or two. Zane Smith ended up winning despite the pitch because he chose not to come in before the stage caution to pit. And then after that, that put him more back in the field for the second stage. And then we had a classic case of NASCAR revenge on lap 21 coming out of the Triple Apex. I believe it's turn 18. The 88 of Matt Crafton got hit by the 61 of Chase Purdy, which caused him to go into the gravel and get stuck. On the preceding restart, Crafton, in the very slow section after that hairpin, I think that would be, turn 16, gave Purdy a nice little bump and around. And he did it cleanly, no one else was impacted. He just turned Purdy. Race stayed green. John Hunter Nemechek also got turned by Zane Smith while they were battling for the front of the field at the end of that stretch, or that straight. And then stage two, again, because of the pit strategy of other drivers, Zane Smith cycled to the front and won it as well, sweeping the stages in the race. On lap 30, Chris Wright and I believe it's Jack Wood made contact in the S's section, which then caused Haley Deegan to get right front suspension damage, which forced her out of the race. Wright and Wood were able to continue on, but that is another DNF for Deegan, who is sitting very deep in the points right now and needs a win to hope to make the playoffs. Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman, the two bushwhackers, Cup drivers who race in lower series, are fighting for the lead with a lap to just over a lap to go before a caution came out for a stalled truck. Really unfortunate because, as you could see by the results, Bowman didn't finish in the top 10, and Busch did not win the race. So we'll get to that now. On the first overtime, the 0-2, or the 2 of Kaz Gralla, got beached coming out of, I believe it was I want to say the first turn, the first complex in the gravel. So that forced them to restart again, in which Stuart Friesen, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Busch all went into turn 11, which is the hairpin before the long backstretch, 3 wide. Friesen had the move. Bowman made a dive bomb and made contact with Friesen, hooking them up and forcing Busch also off the track. This is the contact that gave Bowman what would become a flat tire later on the final lap, allowing Zane Smith, who was in 4th place and who had worked his way back up from, I believe he was in the 20s due to the strategy of staying off for stage points. And he was running 4th and just snuck up the inside and ran away for the lead and ended up winning the race. So then looking at the statistics, there were 8 cautions for only 12 laps, so not too bad considering the race was only 46 laps long. 2 of them were for stage cautions. There were 6 leaders with 10 lead changes. A lot of trucks finished on the lead lap with only 7 DNFs. Like I mentioned, another bad day for Deegan. I mean, between the fire in her car last week at Atlanta, this at COTA. She got involved in a wreck at the opening race in Daytona. She got involved in a wreck at Las Vegas. I think, well, that's all 4 races. So, yes, she has been involved in an incident in all 4 races to start the season for the Truck Series. And then the next 3 points all kind of build on each other. Kyle Busch, he dominated the first race he was in this year in Las Vegas, lost on the last lap pass by Chandler Smith and Zane Smith, but Zane Smith got DNQ'd, so Busch ended up finishing second. John Hunter Nemechek, like Zane Smith, took advantage of the contact between the leaders to scoot into second place, which is the first time he had finished in the top 10 this season. And then Zane Smith capitalized on the mess for his second win to help make up for the points he lost due to the disqualification. So looking at the point standings, obviously we're on the 4th race of 16 regular season races. Right now, there's still 8 spots left in the playoffs, and you can see here the gap between the 9th and 12th is only 2 points. So that will heat up as we go along. Now, moving on to Xfinity, the Pit Boss 250, which was right after the truck race. A.J. Allmendinger converts for his first win of the year, and, he had to battle with Ross Chastain, who came down from the Cup Series to race, but he really was a non-factor at the very end of the race due to contact made on the final restart. Austin Hill, good for him, his second straight second place. Cole Custer in his second Xfinity start, bushwhacking at COTA this weekend, third. Gregson, Mayer, Snyder, Moffitt, Buford, Paluto, and Creed round out your top 10. Good job for Jay Buford after running really strong last week and then getting wrecked out to come back again this week and finish in the top 10. And then Miguel Paluto in his first of, I believe, 3 scheduled starts in the 5th Junior Motorsports car. Good for him getting a top 10 after having contact early on in the race. So looking at the noble moments, like I just mentioned, Miguel Paluto, Josh Berry, and Sage Karam all got into each other off turn 12, which is the turn off of the long back stretch, and that kind of knocked them out of contention early on in terms of stage points. The first stage, A.J. Allmendinger ended up staying out and took the win, while a lot of the field dropped back on pit so that they could get track position on the second stage. Ty Gibbs, at the very start of stage 2, had a tire issue, which forced him to pit, so he was really a non-factor despite being quick and on pole to start the race. And because of the pit cycling, A.J. Allmendinger pit, most of the leaders pit, so Sam Mayer ended up taking stage 2 to get much-needed points and a playoff point. And then Ross Chastain on the final restart got turned despite being up front, fighting for the lead with Allmendinger. For most of the race, I believe Chastain actually led the most laps, which, this is a precursor to the Cup race on Sunday. And then the finish, A.J. Allmendinger ran away with it. There was really nothing anyone had for him. There was a good battle from 3rd down to 5th between Custer and the JMR cars, but no one was challenging the Dinger while he took home his first win of the season. So looking at the statistics, there was only 4 cautions, 8 laps. 2 of those cautions were stage cautions. Only 5 leaders, but that's to be expected on a road course. 35 cars on the lead lap. Dinger did it again. This was his 7th road course victory in Xfinity, and he's only been running at least full-time for Kaulig since 2021. So this is only his 2nd full-time season with Kaulig. And he's got, a ton. He's known as a road course ringer. His 2 Cup wins are on road courses. And then smaller teams mix it up with the big boys. Now, obviously, this is helped out by the fact that, Ross Chastain was in a DGM car. Cole Custer was in the SS Greenlight car. But throughout the weekend, Jade Buford in the Big Machine Team car, Preston Pardis in the DGM car, even Miguel Paluto, who I know he's in the Junior Motorsports car, but doesn't run full-time, is a road course ringer. He mixed it up. And notable names. I mean, no Joe Gibbs racing car was in the top 10. No, or only one of the Call It cars were in the top 10. So the road course racing in the Xfinity Series is going to be extremely interesting because of that factor that, the dominant drivers and cars may not be there. Now, obviously, Sam Mayer and Noah Gragson for Junior Motorsports were there, and they're consistently there. A.J. Allmendinger got his 6th top 10 of the season. It was nice to see smaller teams, even if they had Cup drivers, compete, for the win. And then looking at points, Gragson and Allmendinger up top with Gibbs in 3rd. All of them are locked in. As you can see on the right, Austin Hill is still locked in. And then we've got 10 points between Riley Herbst and Brandon Brown for that cutoff spot. This was race 6 of 26 regular season races. So still a long way to go, with 8 spots remaining in the NASCAR Xfinity playoffs. Now we move on to the Cup race. So the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix. Man, it still feels weird saying Grand Prix for a NASCAR race. But the winner, Ross Chastain, unable to do it on Saturday, does it on Sunday in interesting fashion, gets his first Cup win and Trackhouse's first Cup win. Chevy's 4th win of the season. Alex Bowman in the Hendrick car nearly didn't steal the win because he was running top 5 all day, but nearly got the win. Christopher Bell gets his first top 5, second top 10, a much-needed day for him. Despite having engine problems about halfway through the race, battled back, got a lucky dog, got back on the lead lap, and finished extremely well. Tyler Reddick, a good day in 5th. Chase Elliott, who was my favorite other than Austin Cindric to win this race, finished 4th, despite having handling problems throughout the race, of which he was very vocal about. Ryan Blaney in his Penske finished 6th despite starting on pole. That was mainly due to some questionable strategy. Martin Truex, a good day, 7th place. Austin Cindric, 8th, which, considering he spun in the later portions of the race, was good for him to get back up that far. Eric Jones, a solid day despite stalling on the backstretch. Managed to recover into 9th. And then Austin Dillon, a really quiet, just solid day with that 10th place finish. So some notable moments. So stage 1 was won by Daniel Suarez, who led every single lap. Won the stage. Obviously, he stayed up to win the stage. And this is where I'm going to go into, I know it happened in the Truck and Xfinity race, but this is where I'm going to go into this whole idea of strategy on road courses. So NASCAR is divided into 3 stages, Stage 1, Stage 2, and the finish. Stage 1 and Stage 2 award 10 points down to 1 point for 1st to 10th place finish. However, because a road course in a Cup car takes 2.5 minutes to, go around, the 45-second loss in pit lane does not harm, they don't lose a lap, so they can stay out when the stage caution happens. This is the common road course strategy if you want to win the race typically in NASCAR. You pit 2 or 3. You have to pit before the leader gets the 2 to go on the stage. So typically they pit with 3 or 4 laps left in the stage. They pit, you come out, you maybe finish in the teens. Sometimes if a lot of people do it, you finish in 9th place, 8th place, get some points. But then you take the lead to start the next stage, which is obviously the most important thing, is track position on a road course. So Daniel Suarez didn't do this, and it hurt him massively in Stage 2. Also, this is why Denny Hamlin on lap 30 won Stage 2, despite running, I think it was 15th all day to that point. The top 14 drivers pit for the strategy aspect. And Suarez, because he didn't pit, he started, I believe, 25th on the restart, got spun out, and then got a flat tire. So he had to limp around, then go into the pits, get it changed. He was a non-factor for the rest of the day, really. He also had some other issues, but, power steering issues. But, again, stage racing, we'll go into my thoughts on this, especially on road courses in a bit, but really this strategy severely impacts, and if I'm trying to win the race, you don't want to win the stage. especially since we're only 6 races into the regular season. And I thought if you watch Real Radman and me, for whatever reason, Radman did a great job ranting about that, so I'm not going to do it. And then, like I mentioned, Chastain and Cindric were leading the race before they pit early before the stage. And then in stage 3, our first caution was because Eric Jones stalled on the backstretch, was fortunately able to get it refired and obviously finished in the top 10. Bubba Wallace then, after this restart, pit for fresh tires, and then he lost a wheel at turn 16. The lug nut was loose. It came off. You see it come off on the slow-mo replay, and then the wheel just takes off. So he was out of the race because of that. With only 5 laps to go, Larice Hezemans in his first Cup race lost rear gear and then stopped on the track. So the caution came out. And then in the first attempt to finish this race, Logano, Larson, and Kurt Busch, all going around the outside in turn 1, crashed. So Larson was spun, Logano went into the gravel, Kurt Busch hit Larson. Just a bit of a mess, and Logano dropped a lot of gravel on the track, so they had to clean that up. And then in lap 69, we had an overtime finish. That was interesting to say the least. Tyler Reddick had the lead. He lost it to Chastain and Allmendinger. So he dropped back to third, and then Bowman passed him going on to the final lap. So going through turn 18, that long right-hander, or right before turn 18, on turn 16, A.J. Allmendinger, who was behind Chastain at that time, gave Chastain a bump, which forced Chastain wide. Allmendinger passed for the lead. Now, this is a common thing you see on NASCAR short tracks where the bottom is dominant and a faster car bumps the car in front out into the outside lane, which is the slower lane, and then takes the lead and runs away. Also why a bump and run car accident is called that too. But anyway, bump and run. Gave him the bump and run, except he didn't run far enough. And coming into turn 19, Ross Chastain, and maybe Alex Bowman should have realized this because he was 3 wide on the farthest outside while Chastain's on the inside. Allmendinger's in the middle. Ross Chastain forgot what the brake pedal was and kind of drove through Allmendinger, which then knocked Allmendinger into Bowman and sent Allmendinger afterwards into the gravel. So Allmendinger actually finished 33rd despite being second with 2 corners to go. And Ross Chastain won his first Cup race with Bowman finishing second. So, yeah, that was certainly an entertaining finish, to say the least. So then, building into the statistics, only 9 cautions, only 13 laps. There were actually 9 leaders. So, discounting Hamlin, really, the 8 leaders that ran up front deserved to be up front. 32 cars on the lead lap, and the new car performed extremely well. I probably should have put extremely in front of there. But this car was designed to be a better road course car. And this car certainly looked and sounded like a sports car racing on the track, which was extremely nice to see. It was durable. It took bumps. It took hits. You could be a bit physical with the car. The drivers struggled with the car. They, spun a few times. They also were able to brake deeper, so it didn't look weird with NASCAR, with the cars starting to brake at like the 400-meter board, and instead they could drive it in a bit deeper. Now, obviously, this was no Formula One or even IndyCar, lap times here. They were, I think lap times were like 2:05, so still slow, but a lot faster, in my opinion, than last year, even with last year being wet. And then COTA, if they can solve the track limits on the S's situation, which they have to prevent cutting the course because it's all asphalt runoff rather than grass, like in the next complex of S's or gravel, or like even later on in the track where they allow the drivers to run wide, which I have no problem with. They just need to sort out their consistency in that section, but COTA needs to return. It had a strong crowd. Front grandstand was sold out. I believe the long straight grandstand was sold out, Was a little disappointing to see the stadium grandstand kind of empty, but at the same time, this isn't Formula One. I wasn't expecting 200,000 people to be there, so I was happy by the race, the amount of people there. It looked like it was a good time. Obviously, Trackhouse got its first race win. If you would have asked me going into this year, would Ross Chastain or Daniel Suarez win a race, I would have said no way. I predicted Chastain to make the playoffs, but that's because I thought he was a consistent enough driver and he'd win a super speedway race, not a road course race. I don't associate Ross Chastain with road course racing. So that was very impressive from him and Trackhouse that they were able to nail the setup and execute to win this race. Now, obviously, Chastain ran the day before, but he was quick in that car. He was quick in a DGM car that's typically mid-pack. So, some of that is Chastain against a little bit of weaker talent, but I wouldn't call A.J. Allmendinger weaker talent when he was battling in the Xfinity race with Dinger for the win. And obviously, these cars handle different than the Xfinity cars. So, it was a great race, in my opinion, from that aspect. Other things make it good. The stages, I don't like them at road courses, and this fits into the NASCAR at its finest. The restarts were fantastic because it was chaotic, which is what NASCAR wants, supposedly. But I hate in terms of restarts because Daniel Suarez, on any other series, even those with stages, because there are stages in IMSA and World Endurance Championship that award points at certain intervals throughout the race, they don't stop racing. Daniel Suarez got screwed by his crew chief and himself not pitting before the stage break. Now, you may be like, oh, well, that's just strategy call. No, it's not. When you are allowing teams to do that, which is legal, and you're sending the quickest car at that time to the middle of the field where drivers are going 6 wide in turn 1, it's not fair, and it's not the message they should be showing. I hope when we go to Sonoma, which is our next road course, everybody pits early, and it's just a sham for 2 laps because everyone pit before the stage. No one stayed out on track, and it looks absolutely stupid because then we have a caution, despite everyone have already pitted, and no one's going to come down pit lane. On an oval, a stage caution almost makes sense. On road course racing, it's horrible. But that's the NASCAR at its finest. The other NASCAR at its finest, which in my opinion is a good thing, is the associated bump and run. No other racing series would Ross Chastain have got that win. He would have been DQ'd for legitimately taking out a driver. Now, obviously, Allmendinger made contact first in the previous turns. So Chastain was justified. But he's going to get one coming to him from Allmendinger. Could be this week. Allmendinger's racing at Richmond. Short track. You might give Chastain a nice solid bump. But that's NASCAR. Some of the most historic things, most traditional things are, beating and banging on short tracks, bumping and running. If you bump, you got to run. Allmendinger didn't run. He bumped. He didn't run. And so he got bumped back. So, I've got no problem with the finish, especially with the playoffs. Chastain was like, look, I'm going to do this, and I'm probably going to secure my playoff berth. Now, does he do this if it's not playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Like A.J. Allmendinger said in his post-race interview, at the end of the day, if he can sleep with himself after doing that, well, what can I do? And I think there should be more of that in NASCAR. Now, obviously, not every lap, not everything should just be a bump. And if that happens, God, I hope fights start happening between the drivers because they've got to regulate themselves. I'm happy NASCAR doesn't step in, even if in every other racing series. And this is where I like NASCAR. You can do this in NASCAR. If you attempted to do a bump and run in Formula One, your car would break, the other car would break, and you'd both be out of the race. Sports car racing, you can kind of do it, but because sports cars often have, faster cars coming up on them in the prototype categories, you don't want this because that would impact them. So they police it pretty heavily. And then IndyCar, same thing as Formula One, although a bit tougher. It's very dangerous to do that because of the open wheel nature of the cars. So I'm all for NASCAR allowing that. And it was certainly entertaining to see Allmendinger go shooting off into the gravel. Or shooting off. Shooting? Gee, wow. Shooting off into the gravel. And then, obviously, a new era of drivers. All of the winners are under 30. We haven't had an old guy win, even if Hendrick has 3 wins. Then again, Hendrick's really young. But Kyle Busch hasn't won a race. Denny Hamlin hasn't won a race. Kurt Busch hasn't won a race. Kevin Harvick hasn't won a race. Brad Keselowski hasn't won a race. Joey Logano hasn't won a race. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that those drivers, none of them would win, at least one of them would not have a win, I'd say you're crazy. Because they're the most experienced drivers. They're typically the quickest drivers, but they just haven't been there. I mean, sure, some of them have competed for wins, but they really haven't been, closing it out. I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch and Truex probably should have. One of them won Las Vegas if it wasn't for Eric Jones getting extremely loose and hitting the wall. But it's a new age, new era. It's a transition period. This new generation of drivers, they're really good. And I think they're going to start eclipsing the old guys, if not by the middle part of this year, certainly by the end of this season, if not next season. So with that, we go on to the point standings. Chase Elliott at 208 points is your points leader. Ryan Blaney and Logano follow up. Then we have our first winner in Alex Bowman, and followed by 2 more winners. Eric Almirola still sitting strong in 8th. Tyler Reddick moves up into 10th. Kyle Busch, with his disappointing day, down to 11th. Kurt Busch drops like a stone because of his bad day, down to 13th. Daniel Suarez now moves into the top 16. Or I believe he already was. My bad. The reason why Brad Keselowski is no longer in 17th is because Keselowski suffered an 100-point deduction due to NASCAR finding a modified stock next-gen part, which is highly illegal, so they slapped him with a 100-point penalty. He's appealing it, but for now we will act like it's been enforced. So he has dropped from 17th to, I believe, after this result, 32nd. Bubba Wallace is now 20th. Austin Dillon moves up into the top 20. Eric Jones moves into 17th. And Kyle Larson, who, despite having a win, is 16th right now because he has had 3 DNFs in 6 races. So he's being saved by the stage points he has accrued. And then we have 6 of our 16 drivers locked into the playoffs. So technically, because Larson's in 16th, there is a 7-point gap between Suarez and Jones for that final playoff spot. Now looking at the fun standings, which is the fast car ones, Chandler Smith now has the lead in the Truck Series, followed by Stuart Friesen, Tanner Gray, Ben Rhodes, and Zane Smith. Smith's DNQ at Vegas, again, haunting him. John Hunter Nemechek nearly moves in the top 10 with his second-place finish. And then Kyle Busch is the only part-time driver to be on this list in the top 20, down in 18th. Then moving on to the Xfinity Series, the top 3 continue their runaway as Gibbs loses the lead of the championship to A.J. Allmendinger, with Noah Gragson 60 points behind in second. But they all have at least nearly 200 points on 4th place Austin Hill, who is battling with his teammate Sheldon Creed for top 5 spots. And then notable drivers to hop into the top 20 this week. Myatt Snyder bounces back from having a few rough races to finish 6th this week, and so that moves him up to 19th at 560 points. Then on the Cup, you can see the difference in parity here between the top 3 in Xfinity and the top 3 here. Much different. Instead of being 110 points, it is only 30 points as Chase Elliott takes the lead here, but Ross Chastain takes over second place because of his win, so he's only 10 points behind Elliott. No one really notable in the top 20. Although, actually, notable name to drop out of the top 20, Kyle Larson. Again, because of those 3 DNFs. is no longer in the top 20 in points. Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell have nearly gotten into the top 20, but they are still trying to recover from their horrid start to the season. And that's it. NASCAR at COTA. It's, again, extremely weird seeing NASCAR race on a Formula One track. Track clearly not designed for NASCAR with that amount of runoff. But, delivered good racing, side-by-side racing. Fair for the most part racing. I'm going to continue my call that stages, especially on road courses, should not have cautions. Keep the stage points. That's fine. I could care less. If you're able to run up front for the first two stages because of, you're going to get cautions. We saw this track broke cars. Incidents happen still. You don't need to stack them up to have those on a road course because it's going to happen. I think, with 68 laps and 20 turns, there was something like over 3,600 turns these drivers had to make. Someone's going to mess up one or two of them and cause a caution. So, other than that, good race. Hope to see COTA back next year. I'm pretty sure Speedway Motorsports, who rented the facility again this weekend from COTA's owners, are looking to do so for a third year next year. This date works much better. The weather was perfect. No rain, no monsoon, no scary crashes on the backstretch, unlike last year. So, hope to see COTA return again. And that's it for today. Upcoming this week is Jess NASCAR at Richmond, so you guys will be seeing that on the channel soon, where the next gen takes on a track that has been pretty bad the past few years with the previous generation of car. So hopefully this harder to drive car with the good horsepower number of 670 horses is able to perform good again. Again, the NASCAR racing's been great. We had great Formula One racing, great IndyCar racing, great NASCAR racing so far to start the season. Oh, and great sports car racing to start the season. So 2022 is looking fantastic. And yeah, thank you all for supporting. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about COTA this weekend in NASCAR. Should it stay? Should it go? Your thoughts on the race in general. Subscribe to the channel in the description. Link to my Twitter account where you will get tweets saying when I am live and tweets about the specific racing action. And yeah, I'll be back with the Richmond race weekend preview soon. So take care, everyone.